these days?
Yes, very much so. Donald Trump behaves like a mob boss. He doesn't behave like a human being. He behaves like a mob boss. He talks in code. I understood that code very, very well based upon my close proximity to him. And he knows exactly what he's doing. He knows how he's saying it. He doesn't give the exact order. No different than a mob boss putting a hit on somebody. You know, you could do it with a look. You could do it with the pointing of a finger. There are many ways to do it. And Donald Trump has become a master of that, an absolute maestro in mob talk.
But come January 6, it's a different mob he's accused of directing.
USA! USA! USA!
In one of the darkest and perhaps most shocking moments of American history, Capitol Hill comes under attack.
Where the f*** are they?
We're gonna walk down and I'll be there with you.
An ugly mob spurred on, say many, by the man they're chanting for.
Fight like hell. And if you don't fight like hell, you're not gonna have a country anymore.
Jesus Christ! We invoke your name!
But the fight now is a legal one. Not just for the rabble who turned their wrath on democracy's greatest symbols.
Don't dare call them protesters. They were a riotous mob.
But for the dumped president, charged with inciting them to insurrection.
Given my experience working for Mr. Trump, I fear that if he loses the election in 2020, that there will never be a peaceful transition of power.
You predicted that the transition of power would not be peaceful. Even before we saw the mobs, that Donald Trump would not go peacefully. How could you have been so certain?
Because I know Donald Trump like I know the back of my hand.
Article 1, Incitement of Insurrection.
This week, Donald Trump goes on trial in the Senate, the only US president in history to be impeached twice.
We know that the President of the United States incited this insurrection.
His conviction for insurrection relies on 17 Republicans to vote with the Democrats.
The mob was fed lies. They were provoked by the president.
Which, despite the initial universal outrage at Trump, now seems insurmountable, with fears of retribution from the man himself. Do you expect that Donald Trump will be judged to have incited that mob? Do you think that that's how the vote will go?
I think that there will be a very difficult time in getting 17 Republicans to do what they know is right, but simply because they fear for their own jobs, that they may not, and they probably will not do it.
Of course, there is an argument that because your country is so divided, this impeachment vote should not go ahead, that the focus should be on the future. The focus should be on the new administration.
Well, that basically would then allow somebody to escape their responsibility, their criminal responsibility, simply because, why? Because he was the former president? Donald Trump was the dog whistle blower for an insurrection assault, a coup on our democracy, on our capital. How can they possibly try to rationalize the fact that he should not be held responsible for his crimes?
For years, Mr. Cohen considered himself and openly referred to himself as Mr. Trump's fixer.
Michael Cohen says he's a reluctant fall guy for his former boss in the now infamous Stormy Daniels payoff.
My attorney and I are committed to making sure that everyone finds out the truth.
Cohen says on behalf of Trump and out of his own pocket, he paid hush money to the porn star to keep the alleged tryst with Donald Trump secret.
He has never thought women like me matter.
It's all fake news. It didn't happen.
The $130,000 payoff happened during Trump's 2016 run for president, making it illegal.
Did you know about the $130,000 payment from Daniels?
As bank details show, Trump paid Cohen back in installments.
Why did Michael Cohen make it if there was no truth around engagement?
We have to ask Michael. Michael's my attorney, and you'll have to ask Michael.
But denying any wrongdoing and protected by presidential immunity, prosecutors targeted Michael Cohen.
Southern District of New York has convicted Michael Cohen.
Michael Cohen received his 3-year prison sentence.
He was sentenced to 3 years jail for the illegal payment as well as fraud.
It's a disgraceful situation. This is a pure and simple witch hunt.
How I ended up in prison for another man's dirty deeds is something that I have a very hard time understanding, but it's okay. One day at a time, I'll get past it.
And do you have no doubt, though, that Donald Trump explicitly knew what those payments were for?
Absolutely. I mean, anybody that would think anything different. I've never met Stormy Daniels. I've never spoken to her. I've never texted her. I've never emailed her. I've never communicated with her. Anything that I did ran through her lawyer. So the notion that I was doing this, without Mr. Trump's express knowledge and at his direction, and most importantly for his benefit, it's ludicrous.
Michael Cohen is serving the final year of his jail term under house arrest. A stunning fall from grace from when he was in the thrall of the real estate mogul, hired as his personal lawyer in 2006.
When I was working for Donald Trump, I have described the organization very much like a cult. From the moment that you step into the building, which is Trump Tower, to the moment you get to the Trump elevators, up to the 26th floor, where you have massive wording on the doors and on the walls, all Trump, followed by photos of Trump everywhere that you go. You do truly believe that Trump is the only name in the entire world.
When I met Donald Trump back in 2002, he was happy to show off Trump Towers and his view of the New York City skyline.
If you had to do a sales pitch for New York, what would you say?
Well, I know so many cities, and I'm in a lot of cities. I'm involved with a lot of cities, but I will say from a sales pitch and from honesty, there is no city in the world like New York, and I know them all.
In an audience with the king of deal-making, over-the-top flattery is his opening.
She like the Queen of Australia? She's beautiful.
Albeit fleeting.
So what's your first name, Tara?
Tara.
Do I need makeup for this?
Nearly 20 years ago, it was property, not the presidency, that was on his mind.
You're not getting out of property.
No, I like it. I mean, I'm stuck. I like it.
Michael Cohen has been with Trump all the way. From big business to star of the small screen. Now he could play a critical role as prosecutors launch criminal investigations into this one-term president, who to this day believes he's been robbed.
You have to remember, Donald Trump is a narcissistic sociopath. So he doesn't see things clearly the way that you or I would. He sees things in a light that's most favorable to Donald Trump. What's happened here is this has been a very, very significant blow to his fragile ego, where he has to now acknowledge that the world, especially this country, we see him as a loser. And that's very difficult for him.
But sometimes losers win, especially if it's Teflon Don.
Donald Trump, he's a clever son of a gun. And there's no way in the world that he's not going to take advantage of a get-out-of-jail-free card.
In a Park Avenue apartment in Manhattan, New York, Michael Cohen is doing time, under house arrest until November, for his part in paying $130,000 in hush money to porn star Stormy Daniels to cover up her alleged fling with Donald Trump.
Mr. Cohen, Mr. Cohen, Mr. Cohen.
But the 3-year jail term has cost Cohen more than he ever imagined.
Are you happy?
Michael, what is it that motivates you to speak out against Donald Trump like this? Is it merely vengeance?
No, I don't have vengeance and so on. What happened
You must have a little bit. A little bit?
No. I really do feel an obligation to make amends. First, again, and foremost, is to my wife. I mean, what I put her through with this ordeal was second to none. my children as much as to my wife, and then to this country. And I will not be the villain of Donald Trump's story. The things that I did should not put me in the history books as being either the villain or a hero. I am merely telling the truth.
Beyond his impeachment trial this week, Donald Trump now faces multiple criminal investigations into his business dealings prior to and during his time in the White House. No longer a sitting president, he is no longer afforded automatic legal protection. What areas specifically is he vulnerable in, given that he no longer has that presidential protection?
As it relates specifically to Donald Trump, it's predominantly his business, his finances, it's his tax evasion, misrepresentations to bank fraud, etc.
So, Michael, will you be testifying in those cases?
What I can tell you is, if called, I would definitely be testifying, and I suspect that the answer to your question, Tara, is yes.
And in regards to the hush money paid to Stormy Daniels, the very crime that you're sitting at home for under house arrest, do you now expect Donald Trump to face prosecution over that, given he no longer has presidential protection?
Oh, yes, it's already part of the overall discussion because of the way that they handled and they treated the payment.
Allegations against Trump of obstruction of justice, witness tampering and perjury have all been made before. This time around, they come with legal clout because with no immunity, prosecution is now possible. Except Michael believes the former president could well be holding one last secret trump card.
Donald Trump, as you stated, he's a clever son of a gun. And there's no way in the world that he's not going to take advantage of a get-out-of-jail-free card. I wouldn't be shocked if he has pocket pardons signed, sealed, delivered, time-stamped, and in the event that they turn around and they come to take him, he'll be like, you cannot arrest me, you cannot incarcerate me, I have a pardon. Here's the letter, you can open it, here's a copy, the originals are sitting with a lawyer or somebody else.
And you're saying that because you know the man, not because you have any evidence of that?
Correct. There is no way that Donald Trump will pass over an opportunity, right, to stay out of jail free card when he knows that the second he walked out of the front doors to the White House, that opportunity would be gone.
Harder to avoid may be the financial dire straits Cohen predicts Trump will find himself in fines for alleged tax evasion and mammoth loans that are due to be paid back soon. What is the financial future for Donald Trump?
I see it being very bleak. I believe that Donald Trump will be held guilty of tax evasion, and I believe that he will be required to pay back a very substantial amount of money in terms of taxes that have not been paid over the course of the last 7 years. So not only will he have this taxable consequence, but he also has over $340 million worth of debt and obligation coming due in the next 2-3 years to Deutsche Bank. So somewhere along the line, he's going to need to come up with a substantial amount of cash in order to pay off the debt that is currently owed and coming due.
How does he do that? Has he got a plan?
No, I think one of two ways. He will continue to grift off of his supporters, where he's raised over $200 million. It's pretty substantial. But I also believe that something that Donald Trump has intended to do, going back to some early conversations between myself, Jared Kushner, and Mr. Trump, and that would be to create a Trump News network. Start, rolling out a competitor, so to speak, to Fox News, which is why he has specifically gone after Fox very recently and very, very strongly, as he likes to say.
Donald Trump's support base is still so strong, he's likely to make billions off a pay TV news network. A compelling enough reason, according to Michael, for Trump to lose interest in politics.
We have made America powerful again.
As for the grown-up Trump children, current criminal investigations into the tax affairs of the Trump Organization may well end their political ambitions too.
First of all, there will never be another Trump into the White House. I'm willing to put money on that bet. Who do we have, right, of the 3 children? Don? I mean, that's just not going to happen. Ivanka, everybody thinks is the superstar. It's just not true. And I do believe that the litigation that is ensuing, both by the district attorney as well as the attorney general here in New York, will be more than enough to put an end to that idea.
So you expect them to be convicted?
I expect them to be charged for certain. Based upon the information that I see, I do see some significant issues coming down the road.
Donald Trump has long declared he's the target of a political witch hunt. Others, like Michael Cohen, want the allegations against him tested in court. And according to Michael, the Senate trial to convict or acquit the former president of inciting insurrection, resuming on Tuesday, is not the end, but just the start of the journey to justice. Do you expect to one day see Donald Trump in jail?
You know, that's a question I often get a lot. I do believe that he will ultimately be responsible for his behavior and his actions. I wouldn't mind seeing it. I would like him to understand what he did to me, and to feel the same pain that I felt being, removed from my family, away from my wife and my 2 children, from my friends, the loss of my business, the loss of my law license, my happiness. And, again, for what, right? Because Donald Trump had an affair with a porn star, and, we didn't want that information to come out. It just, for me, yes, I would like for him to experience a percentage of the pain that I ended up going through. And that would certainly be karma boomerang.